Good morning, I'm Jim Chericani. Bill Rapley is off today. Former Superintendent of State Police Brendan Doherty is a Republican running for Congress in Rhode Island's 1st District. Right now, he's trying to unseat incumbent Democrat David Cicilline, but it looks like Cicilline is going to be facing a primary from Democrat Anthony Gemma. This is Doherty's first try at politics. Will he be able to upset the incumbent, or will he be facing Anthony Gemma, a moderate Democrat who ran for the seat once before? Brendan Doherty is our guest this morning on 10 News Conference. Thanks for joining us.
Jim, thanks for having me.
I want to start off talking about Afghanistan. That's been in the news this week. You've heard about the sergeant who went on a shooting spree, killed 16 people, men and women. He's going to be transported today. We're taping this on a Friday to the United States.
Yes.
It has prompted some to call for an even earlier withdrawal from Afghanistan, earlier than the president's timetable of 20. What do you think? Do you think we should get out of there sooner?
Well, I've said all along that I believe we need to listen to our military leaders, and we need to listen to Leon Panetta and the plan, the strategy. But I also believe it's time. We've been there for so many years now. It's time. We're there to build governance, and we've helped effectuate that to some extent. But the Karzai government has not been always supportive of us. And this incident that you're referring to, that should not have a reflection on our troops. We have the best and the brightest military in the world, and we need to support them.
In the New York Times this morning, this sergeant has a lawyer, and the lawyer said that this military guy was drinking. He was under a lot of stress. This was his 4th tour of duty, 3 in Iraq, and I think 1 there, 2 and 2. Some have been calling for these troops that we deploy to serve less tours, 1 or 2 tours, because the stress on him, his family, would you favor something like that by limiting the tours, especially of National Guard people?
Yes, I absolutely would support that. I have a nephew who's in Afghanistan, and I understand the stress that they're going through. And I've talked to several young men and women that have come back from Afghanistan that were employed by me when I was superintendent of the state police. I understand that stress. But aside from that issue, we need to bring our troops back as soon as possible in an orderly fashion. I believe so. I believe so. I believe we've accomplished quite a bit in Afghanistan, and we could be there for another 10 years and not accomplish any more than we have right now. So let's bring our American troops back in a safe and orderly fashion without reporting a date certain to our enemy.
People like John McCain would say he's very critical of our withdrawal totally from Iraq, and he would say the same thing about, and he has said the same thing about Afghanistan, that by leaving we're allowing the Taliban and some whatever's left of Al-Qaeda to build up again. Are you concerned?
Well, I'm concerned about that. We need to stick with strategy, and that was building governance there, and building democracy, and we have done this. So without having a strong complement of troops there, we can still support the governance in Afghanistan with training and whatnot.
Another topic, certainly in the presidential primaries, the Republican presidential primaries, is this issue of contraception and the president's plan to force employers to make sure the insurance companies of those employers provide contraceptive for all other employees. In an interview, I think about a week ago, that you did with a reporter, and I don't know who it was, you were quoted as saying, "I'm in favor of birth control, and I'll have more on that later." Well, it was later, and you're here. So when you say you're in favor of birth control, what do you mean?
Oh, here's my point that I tried to make. As it relates to the federal government dictating the Catholic Church and charities and schools should have to support birth control, I think it goes beyond contraception. That then is a religious issue, and that comes down to freedom of religion. And I believe this administration has erred in taking on that fight. And I believe that the Catholic Church, it's not just about the Catholic Church, it's the Muslim community, Israeli community, any religion should not have a government interfering with their religion. But as for the other issue, it's with the private sector should be able to have an opt-out. That comes down to the Blunt Amendment in Congress, and I would have voted against that. I'm not opposed to contraceptive use.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's what you meant by you say I'm in favor of birth control?
I'm not opposed to contraceptive use.
Okay. But a Bloomberg poll yesterday, so the 60% of all Americans and 70% of the women in that poll agree with Obama's stance on this. They say it's not a religion. They say it's a women's issue, a women's rights issue. Do you agree with that?
It depends on, there's bifurcated issues there. We're talking about forcing the Catholic Church, or we're talking about private business?
Well, both.
Well,
first the Catholic.
I think there's two separate issues there. I mean, yeah, I would see where a woman would be in favor of providing health care and providing contraception through their businesses, but not the Catholic Church. Different issue. That's religious freedom.
Okay. Let's talk about jobs. Rhode Island, as you probably know, has the third highest unemployment rate in the country. It has the highest unemployment rate here in New England. If you get elected to Congress, what very specific legislation would you introduce or support that would not only improve the business climate for jobs in the country, but specifically for Rhode Island?
Yeah, specifically for Rhode Island, first of all, we need to look at the whole picture, and we need to talk about tax reform. And I talked about this last week in another interview when I talked about Bush tax cuts. We need total tax reform, and within the framework of our tax reform, we need to take the Bush tax cuts and incorporate that, because we need to look at the hard-working middle class that are working so hard to raise a family, to educate their kids. Our tax code, Byzantine tax code, is just too difficult. We need to simplify it. We need tax reform now, and we don't need Bush tax cuts in 2050. We need to address that now. So we need to take our corporate tax rate down. Our corporate tax rate's 35%, one of the highest in the world. And when you look at the state tax rate here in Rhode Island, it's 9% corporate tax rate. So really, you could say that we have, for our business community, we have one of the highest taxes in the world. We need to roll a red carpet out for our business community, be cheerleaders for our business community. That will grow jobs if we're able to put the tax rate down. And by the way, we need to look at the individual tax rates too and bring the marginal rates down. But our corporate tax rate, if we can allow businesses to grow, businesses to easily hire people, grow jobs, that's what we need for America. That's what we need for Rhode Island. I just sat with a fellow in a business in Woonsocket a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about the consistency. We don't have consistency in our tax code. So as a result, they don't have confidence. I've been traveling throughout the first district talking to business owners, and they just don't have confidence in this tax code to hire. One fellow just told me, I could hire 6 people next week, but I'm afraid of Obamacare, and I'm afraid of the tax code.
We're going to talk about Obamacare in the next segment of the program, but speaking of those Bush tax cuts, I saw that interview on another station that you did last week, and your answer to that question, to me, was a bit confusing. So let me ask you, are you in favor of making the Bush tax cuts permanent for everyone?
Well, no, I'm talking, well, yes, permanent within a new tax structure.
And what would the new tax structure be?
We need tax reform. We need tax reform to address all of the issues in the Bush tax cuts, plus the loopholes, because we hear about the Warren Buffett rule and whatnot.
Well, what's your idea of a new tax structure?
A new tax structure is to sit down at the table with a bipartisan solution to coming up with a new tax code. Not to just keep tinkering around and nibbling at it. So they're going to expire. You're talking about the Bush tax cuts. They're going to expire at the end of this year. Obviously, if Congress can't get this done, which Congress has failed us in many ways, so I can't say that I'm too confident we'll have tax reform this year. But if they can't get this done, then we need to extend the Bush tax cuts until the next Congress can get it done. So all of the write-offs within the Bush tax cuts should be within the framework of a new tax reform. Now, we need to simplify that for the hard-working Americans. We need to simplify it for the middle class who are paying too much. Bring the marginal rates down. It affects small businesses.
We have to take a break. Our guest today is Brendan Doherty, a Republican candidate for Congress in the 1st District. 10 News Conference will continue right after this.